Welcome to the Braineaxe podcast. Today's a great day. First podcast. We hope that we do this podcast for the rest of our lives because it's fun. And the best thing is we don't know what the hell we're going to be talking about. No idea. I'm sitting here talking by myself and I have no idea. I don't want to know. I want to figure it out as I go. I want it to be kind of like whatever's off the top of my head, maybe what happened yesterday, maybe what I was just talking about, maybe what happened last year. We don't know, but it's going to be somewhat related to brain function and optimization because that's what Braineaxe is about. Getting the most out of our brains, whether we're, playing brain sports, like Warhammer 40K, some kind of esport, whether you need a brain to, I don't know, anything. What do you need a brain for? Working, I work in a hospital, need my brain. I'm a dad, need my brain. Making podcast videos, somewhat need my brain. Whatever, you need your brain. So I'm a sports nutritionist and I want to focus on ways that I can optimize the brain through, nutritional factors and the regular factors that I use with athletes. But this is Braineaxe. So we got the logo, 2 axes, hacking the brain. We're brain hacking. That's the point. My wife made the logo. Looks great. I love it. I like the tuxedo theme, black and white. And welcome to the first podcast. I am the host, the only guy here. Maybe sometimes we'll have guests. I don't know. But today I'm going to talk about Braineaxe stuff. So I guess what I want to talk about is the crux of it all is like, okay, well, what is there to talk about when we, relate nutrition to brain function? And that's always the case because nutrition does implicate the way our body and brains work, and specifically our brains. They're highly nutrient demanding, more so than we realize. Like, I don't think that we give the brain enough attention. I don't think we give it enough respect. I don't think the brain gets the time of day that it deserves because everything starts in the brain. And I kind of realized this as a sports nutritionist. It was like when you start, you go to school, and you're like, okay, make the muscles work and whatever, protein, get your vitamins, your minerals, build muscle, blah, 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 blah. And that's the traditional way, but you got to start at the basics. And then it's like, the way I want to do things is like, get more, get better, figure out new ways. I like the process of like always trying to get good at the basics, but then like, how do we get better? And we don't know a lot. Like we know a lot, but at the end of the day, like there's so much we don't know. And you get to see that when you get into the high enough. Like when I did my master's and I did my research, it was like, oh, wow, like there's so much you don't know. And you're forced to develop a scientific protocol and you've got to assess everything that's been done in that region and then compile all the research into like a thesis proposal. And then you're like, oh, well, we don't know this. We don't know that. Oh, this is cool. Like this little ketone can actually enter the cell and then turn on the genetics. It's got genetic influence, epigenetics. It has something called a histone deacetylase, and histone is something that wraps around your genetic code and can influence that. It increases the antioxidant capacity of the muscle cell. That's cool. It'll bump up like glutathione or superoxide dismutase. So like entering a ketogenic state or taking ketones will increase the antioxidant capacity of your muscle cell. And it's like, what does that do? Does it improve muscle recovery? And that's what we had looked like. But it was fun. And then you realize like there's so much that's just not understood. And it's, playing in that world of like, what works and what doesn't work. And I do it for athletes trying to get the most out of their bodies. And it's a more holistic approach. But with Braineaxe, it's like, I really just want to play with the brain and getting into Warhammer and spending 10 hours playing frickin' Warhammer at a tournament made me realize like, whoa, this is a cool place to optimize the brain. What little like tricks and tools can I do to get the most out of my brain? Because I'm a crappy Warhammer player, but I can get better. Like my advantage is going to be like, I like the game. I suck at the game. And I'm doing these competitions, but it's like, okay, well, most of these people are good at the game or better than me, but they have horrible, like just nutrition and sleep and just poor, very poor understanding of their own physiology. So it's like, I can make that my advantage and then gradually get better at the game. But that started this process of like getting obsessed with optimizing the brain for brain function and specifically brain sports, going to these Warhammer tournaments, looking at the people I'm playing against who are clearly just better understanding. I haven't been playing Warhammer very long, but I was like, okay, well, this is my advantage. So then I'm going to these tournaments and bringing bottles of pills and, you know, like eating very specific things in the morning. And I'm like, okay, I got my Warhammer stuff. You got your Warhammer stuff. This is our army. We're going to play each other. Let's like go through the things, secondaries, roll off. And then I'm like, do you want a bottle of pills? As I take these pills before the match. And most people are very skeptical. I think they thought I was about to poison them. And most people are like, no, I don't want your pills, man. And I'm like, all right, more pills for myself. Boom. Brain focus, everything. And I'm walking around with my little Warhammer cart. And anyone who's been to a Warhammer tournament, you've got like a cart, you've got a whole bunch of freaking models and dice and tape measures and rule books and all your crap. And then I've got a bunch of pill bottles as I'm like testing out these things on myself. Optimizing brain because the game is demanding. And most people don't understand what tabletop is, competitive tabletop, but you could think of chess. Chess is more relatable. So imagine like having to play 3-hour chess matches that you're very like into the game, competitive against your opponent, and you got to play them basically like back to back to back on a day. So you're looking at like 9 hours of playtime. You're exhausted. There is like your ability to focus, concentrate, decision-making, the pressure. It was just fun. And now I'm freaking here, started this new company. I didn't need a new company. I already got a bunch of companies. But when I get obsessed with something, I want to do it and then, you know, make it grow like a little kid. It's like I just, you know, like I had 3 kids. They just kept popping out one after another. Now I've got, you know, 3 companies. But it's fun. It's like your kids piss you off, just like your companies piss you off. But you want them to do good and you want to grow them and they're fun and exciting and they're stressful and Braineaxe is here. That's what I got to say. So going back to wherever this is going, nutrition does influence your brain. And I was looking at like, I'm always looking at studies because it's what I got to do to maintain my practice, to be at the front of the game. You've always got to be thinking. And I looked at 2 different studies in the past couple of days. One of them was like, I'm always looking for kind of like esports brain optimization because this is a growing world. And there was a cool study done. I'll probably cite it if I post this video. I'll probably put it down in the link. But it was looking specifically at esports, high level esport. I don't know exactly what that meant, but they had like 140 people sign up for this study, about 20 women, 120 men. And then they took diet analyses. Now I had to do this in my own research. You know, we would take a diet analysis, go off, eat whatever you're going to eat, and then log it. And then we're going to input this into like a scientific system, a computer system, and then find out how much micronutrients, how much carbs, how much protein you're getting. And then we're going to put you through this scientific protocol to assess your video game success. And it was like reaction time and decision making and things like that. And so they would put them through there and they would look at their diets. And then, then they would like modify their diets and see if it would improve. And what they found was interesting. They did these, 140 people. They analyzed their diets and there was like consistent nutrients that they were deficient in, which directly correlated to their level of like reaction time, decision-making, blah, 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 blah. And it was interesting because a lot of those nutrients to me were self-evident, and they do these like correlation analyses as they transition them through like regular diet, deficient in X, Y, Z, and then they, now let's up the nutrients and see do they improve as they transition to like this crossover. And things like omega-3 were consistently there. Things like zinc. They had this nice table, and I'll try and post this table if I can. And it showed you like the list of nutrients and like the amount of people that were deficient. And some things like magnesium, for example, I think something like above 90% of the people within this study at baseline with whatever they were eating were deficient in magnesium. And that was something that directly correlated to poor performance in the esport analysis. So their ability to play the game, like their brain, their ability to make decisions, reaction time were impaired when they were deficient in magnesium. And then there was like 10 things: omega-3, zinc, selenium, magnesium, all of these components within food that we're just not eating enough of. And it's difficult. Like my other job is I do that for athletes, is I make sure that they're getting all of the nutrients. You've got, calories, just total energy. You've got your macro big nutrients, which is your carbs, fats, and proteins. Protein deficiency was also one of the things that was impacting their ability to play the game. Just protein, which is interesting because we don't exactly know. We know protein influences muscle recovery, our ability to build muscle or maintain muscle. And we know that that has an implication for playing a physical sport, but it also influenced brain function, which isn't something based off of this analysis, this diet analysis. We didn't know that protein but your brain is made out of, mostly fats, but also protein. It's structural. Protein is a building block in the body. And the brain is predominantly made out of fats. Your neurons are predominantly made out of these fatty acids and largely a specific type of omega-3 fatty acid called DHA. And this DHA, omega-3, was one of these other things associated. If you don't eat enough of, your brain doesn't work as well. So after actually researching this study and then looking at all these key nutrients, and then looking at how they influenced the brain sport, I was like, am I allowed to swear on YouTube? And I was like, I stopped giving my kids omega-3, and they definitely don't eat enough fish. We made salmon patties the other day, and the kids kind of ate them. The oldest one a little bit. They put some mayo on it, and we get it in, but we don't make salmon patties nearly enough. Like, these kids got to be eating omega-3 because their brains are developing. And kids, my 3 boys, just like my 3 businesses, I want them to do good. As much as they piss me off, as much as they're difficult to manage, as much as I want the best for them. And I love them. I love business. I love kids. It's very oddly similar. They're like these little growing entities that you want to do good in the world. And then getting the omega-3s into my kids is something that I used to do with an omega oil. We would put it into this bedtime chocolate milk after dinner. If you guys have kids and your kids are picky, it's an annoying, difficult thing to deal with. And as a sports nutritionist, it's like I always got to be creative. So I would give them this like bedtime chocolate milk where I would take half high fat milk, half chocolate milk, so they're not getting too much of a sugar overload. And then I would add in a plant-based omega-3 called Udo oil with the DHA added in, because the regular Udo oil doesn't have the fatty acid that is required predominantly in the brain. It has another type of fatty acid, omega-3, that can be turned into the fatty acid that goes to the brain. So I was like, okay, let's do it. And then they stopped not liking the taste of the chocolate milk. And eventually kids will figure out when you're screwing with them. So then I was like, okay, after I ordered yesterday, I ordered these new omega-3 gummies. It was a company out in PI that they're taking sardines and mackerel and these things that are high in DHA, and they're putting them into these honey-based gummies. The reviews were all right. They use like a honey natural sweetener mixed with some like citrus flavor, and then they input like the sardine mackerel stuff and they cram it into a little candy. And the reviews seemed decent. The ingredients looked good. And it was a way that I could get daily DHA into my children. They're supposed to arrive today. I haven't gotten them yet, but I'm hoping that they like them, because in the reviews, some kids did, some kids didn't. Supposedly they were sour, like a sweet soury taste that was like off-putting to some children. I don't know, but it's worth the shot, because getting the right nutrients into your kids, into yourselves, the point is it has an influence. And specifically, like your brain matter is made up you got to look at the building blocks of your body. You could tell, okay, well, if you're low in selenium, what does that influence? It influences brain cells, but it influences hormonal status. It's required in human testicles to make testosterone. It's a part of like the cascade testosterone production effect. It's like a cofactor, and it could be a rate limiting step. If you don't have enough selenium, but you got enough of all the other stuff, let's say like zinc and magnesium and thiamine and riboflavin, you've got all these things in there, but you're missing the selenium. Even if you have everything else, the output of testosterone is going to be limited by the one thing you don't have enough of, because it's an essential component to the process. So everything is like that. If you want to build good, functioning, healthy brain cells, we're going to need the DHA on a regular basis. And science can evaluate, well, what happens with the lack of DHA? Well, we have higher risk for diseases like neurological diseases. Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and dementia are all correlated with lower overall DHA in the diet. Specifically, if you look at studies looking at the ApoE genetic, our body's ability to absorb DHA into the brain, that's like a whole other factor that we're not going to go into. The point being is, I'm talking about this stuff. I want people to be aware of this stuff, and I'm going to, as I interpret it and learn and apply it, I want to transcend that information, create awareness, so you guys can take little bits and pieces and apply it to yourselves, apply it to your children, get better at whatever your brain is being utilized for, which is everything, right? Brain sports are cool, esports, tabletop, because they're domains where you're redlining your brain and you really get to feel the differences. Like I'm going to give my kids omega-3, and I'm not necessarily going to be able to see an immediate difference in them within a day or within a week. These things are hard to measure. It's hard to feel within yourself, and it's hard to see exact results. You have to like extrapolate science over a large period of time, be like, oh yeah, this is important. But when you're playing a sport and you're like redlining your brain, like when you're in a Warhammer tournament, highly competitive, lots of pressure, everything makes a difference. Like your brain function is more sensitive. So it's fun to apply the stuff there, because you get immediate benefits. Like if you can't focus properly, you may lose the match. You may forget this, you may forget that. And it's like success or failure. It's immediate. That's why it's fun to apply them to these arenas, because you get immediate feedback on how your brain did in that competition that day. You're pushing your brain to a limit. Did you fuel properly? Did you feel good? Did your brain work well? Were you able to remember everything? Or was your mind scattered? Were you brain foggy? Were you forgetting things? Did you make the wrong decisions under pressure? And there's ways to influence all this. And it's fun to do. And that is what this podcast is going to be about. It's going to be me talking about whatever I've thought about. I'm going to try and do it once a week. And that is it for today. I have enough stuff that I've rambled about, and I don't know where else I'm going to go, but it's going to be free for all rambling, brain, nutrition, physiology. Get your brain right. Braineaxe. Thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, do whatever you got to do. Check out our site. We got cool brain products that we're creating and selling to optimize some aspect of your brain. And check out our social media. And yeah, this is the YouTube stuff. Fun to make content, fun to talk. Bye, guys.